Newsfirst, Newsline with Feroz.
A very good morning and welcome. This is Newsline. I'm not Feroz. I'm Ramesh Irugal Bandara. I'll be replacing Feroz for the next couple of days. Now on Newsline, we usually focus our attention on matters relating to politics or current affairs or even the bond scam and the economy on some occasions. But today we are going to change it up a bit. Today we are going to be talking about cricket. More specifically, we'll be talking about the ball tampering scandal that is currently plaguing the Australian cricket team. Let's take a look at the latest developments of this story before I introduce this morning's guests.
In one of the darkest days Australian cricket has encountered, outgoing coach Darren Lehmann, Cricket Australia boss James Sutherland and the three banned players all spoke to media in the fallout.
To fans of cricket all over the world and to all Australians who are disappointed and angry, I'm sorry.
Darren Lehmann stunned everyone with a shock resignation, less than 24 hours after assuring media he would stay in the job.
I just want to let you know that this will be my last test as head coach of the Australian cricket team as I'm stepping down. After seeing events in the media today with Steve Smith and Cameron Bancroft, the feeling is that Australian cricket needs to move forward and this is the right thing to do.
Australia's former captain Steve Smith took full responsibility for the entire incident.
But as captain of the Australian cricket team, I take full responsibility. I made a serious error of judgment and I now understand the consequences.
When asked about the effects on his family, Smith broke down.
Think about making a questionable decision. Think about who you're affecting. You're affecting your parents, and to see the way my old man's been.
Thanks everybody.
Cameron Bancroft addressed his role in the tampering in a pre-prepared statement.
I've had time to reflect on the events in Cape Town and on the punishments handed down to me by the ICC and Cricket Australia, and I want to say that I'm very sorry. I love the game of cricket and playing for my nation and my state. There is no greater pride to me. I am extremely disappointed and regret my actions.
And after his long-haul flight back to Sydney, he released this statement with his wife and two daughters by his side.
As you can understand, it's been a tough and emotional time for my wife and the kids. At the present time, you'll hear from me in a couple of days. At the moment, my priority is to get these kids in bed and rest up and let my mind be clear so I can think and talk to them in a couple of days.
Cricket Australia CEO James Sutherland spoke in glowing terms of the outgoing coach in Cape Town.
I've seen firsthand the pride in which he has gone about his work, the love he has for the job, his incredible work ethic, and I think one of the things that really strikes me about Darren and his character as a coach is the way that he genuinely cares for and loves his players.
The trio will have until April 5 to ponder the charges levelled against them and decide whether or not they'll challenge.
To discuss these latest developments and everything surrounding this ball tampering scandal, this morning we have with us a cricketer himself and a veteran cricket writer. Good morning, Mr. Mahinder Vijayasinghe.
Good morning, Ramesh.
Mr. Mahinder, now my first question might be a bit polarizing because after the press conferences that you saw, especially the one delivered by Steve Smith, there has been a lot of concern about the actions taken by Cricket Australia. Is the punishment too severe?
Well, Ramesh, I don't think so, because this was not an accidental thing that has happened. It was pre-planned, orchestrated, but unfortunately for the parties concerned, they got caught. And as Alan Border, former captain, said, that if you do the wrong thing and you get caught, you got to pay the price. And this is, in my view, whatever is said and done, it's not a vindictive action by Cricket Australia, because this should act as a deterrent not only to the growing generation in Australia itself, but it should act as a deterrent for the whole world, the cricketing world. So I think, in fact, some people are thinking that especially Warner and Smith should be given life bans. early it has happened. In India it happened, Azharuddin, and even here in Sri Lanka, when our boys went to South Africa, they were originally given life bans.
Okay. Now, with Smith's emotional statement and breaking down in front of the media at the Sydney airport, a lot of his former cricketers or contemporary colleagues, the likes of Chris Gale, then former English cricketer Matthew Vaughan, and a number of others have come out to support. Even his IPL fellow teammates have come out to support him. What is your reaction to the emotional breakdown that Steve Smith had?
Well, that is, as I said, being remorseful after planning. As Border said, if you get caught doing the wrong thing, and you got to pay for it.
So this is not a mistake, is it?
No, it's not a mistake. It's a pre-planned, orchestrated thing, which unfortunately for them backfired. And now you are saying, Ramesh, that even his colleagues in the IPL and so forth are feeling very sorry. That's a personal matter. Now then why did the IPL fellows discard them? They have been cancelled, and in the rush, I think Kusal Perera might benefit by this.
Yes, Kusal Perera has been tipped to take the place of Steve Smith in the IPL team.
Or is it Warner? One of them anyway.
One of the two.
Yeah.
Now, there is also a concern about the ICC's actions, because initially when the story broke, ICC decided to give them a one-match ban and give them a fine.
Yeah.
But Cricket Australia has taken a much more decisive, and they've drawn a line in the sand and said, no, this is what we are going to do. There is a big difference between the actions taken by the ICC and Cricket Australia. Has Cricket Australia done too much, or has the ICC done too little?
I think ICC had done too little, but I think the ICC's action, Ramesh, was actually a knee-jerk reaction. They didn't want to take too harsh a thing, or so they sort of most probably gave a sort of lead for Cricket Australia. Now you take it from here.
Now, we've seen instances of ball tampering in the past as well. We've heard of Mike Atherton, former English captain, having dirt in his trousers. We've heard of Waqar Younis being initially banned. We've heard of Shahid Afridi being fined and banned. But this is different, is it not?
Yes, certainly. In fact, from 1977, there have been 15 instances of ball tampering which have got caught. So there may be even 40 instances which didn't get caught, right? But most of them, or all of them actually, were individual efforts.
Okay.
Like John Lever put Vaseline on his head, and that type of thing. Even as you correctly pointed out, Atherton, and he was fined £2,000 sterling at that time, right? At that time. So those are individual efforts. And also I would go a little further, Ramesh, by saying that the Australians, especially of late, and as described by their former coach Mickey Arthur, he said that their behavior has been both boorish and arrogant.
Okay.
So these are culmination of all that. Even here, I still remember when that left-arm fast bowler Stark, he got one of our batsmen, I think Gunarat, one of them, I can't remember. They got him for the third or the fourth time, I think, got him. And when he was again dismissed, he went on showing. You see, now that is arrogance. That is boorish behavior. So this is a culmination, and Cricket Australia found an opportunity of finishing the whole lot. So
that is the type of action which got South African bowler Rabada recently into hot water against Australia in this very series.
Yeah, that's correct.
Now, I also want to talk about Darren Lehmann, the Australian head coach. Now, he has announced that he is going to retire or step down from the position of Australian coach after the end of this series. But neither the ICC nor Cricket Australia found any wrongdoing on his part. Now, we spoke about this earlier as well, but can you imagine an instance where a cricket team takes actions on their own without the knowledge of their coach?
Well, I won't buy that story. Certainly not. And also, don't forget, Lehmann has had a very shady past. In 2003, when he was given out, he came and made some racial remarks against Sri Lankans. That was very bad. And he was docked, I think, 5 one-day games or something like that. So, I think these are instance of this man resigning after the fourth test. I think some situation like a guilty conscience, because he could not have carried on. So I think he was very sensible in resigning. In your opinion, do you think that this was a one-off thing, or that this had been going on for some time and they eventually got caught in this place? Obviously, because this was the tip of the iceberg. Even South African captain Faf du Plessis, during this series, there were accusations that from the Australian side that Faf du Plessis' team was engaging in ball tampering, and there were accusations from the South African type to the Australian team, and that is what actually led to these visuals being shown on air, because the broadcasters made a concentrated effort on capturing these visuals. So what kind of advantage do these teams get by tampering with this ball? Well, in fact, before I can start, I must say that this series, South Africa-Australia series, has been a very fractious series. They were fighting. I think Bonner went to assault somebody and all that sort of thing. But the question you asked me is that this is a situation where the whole thing came to head, right? And I think this was probably getting completely out of hand. Sledging, fighting, showing dissent at umpires' decisions and so forth. Right. Now, I also want to ask, Smith has been given a 1-year ban. Now, we've seen instances of cricketers who are at their peak being given a ban and then eventually bouncing back, but never reaching their top potential again. Steve Smith is one of the leading test scorers and is one of the highest ranked test batsmen currently. So he will be away from the game at the international level for a year. We've seen Mohammad Amir, Pakistani pace bowler, after the match fixing scandal. He was banned for some time. He served out his ban and came back. He's currently in the Pakistani team and he's doing well. But he's never reached that peak that he was before this scandal broke. Do you think that Smith will be able to bounce back? I mean, from a human point of view, I hope he bounces back, because he's got a family, he has so many other financial problems. But where Amir was concerned, that was called spot fixing. Now, in his case, he was 18 or 19 or some very young age, so he was able to bounce back. But in Smith's case, you see, it has created such a big issue. He'll be lucky if he can bounce back, but he's allowed to play club cricket, and so is Warner. That's all they can do. But it will be very difficult for them to come back, because there's an emotional situation also here. No? And as Steve Smith said, I hope in time I'll be forgiven. So it's difficult for them to, let them settle down and see whether they can get back. But it's a very good lesson for all concerned. I mean, it is going to be difficult for them to come back and earn a spot in the team when the Prime Minister of the country himself goes on the record saying that we have been disgraced by these actions. We will talk more about the actions of Cricket Australia and the Australian cricket team that they have done over the past few years after this short commercial break.
Newsfirst Newsline with Feroz Shaukat Ali.
Welcome back to Newsline. I'm Ramesh Bandara, filling in for Feroz Shaukat Ali, and this morning our guest is veteran cricket writer Mahinda Vijay Singha. Now, what we left off was we wanted to talk about the actions of the Australian cricket team over the past few years. Now, we've noticed certain tactics undertaken by the Australian cricket team, especially with the use of media and other forms, when they engage in a bilateral or tri-nation series in their home turf. Can you talk about a bit about the actions that these players take off the field, these psychological games that they play when another country comes to their own?
Oh yes, very much so. The outstanding example was how they treated Muralidharan, right? You see, what the media does is, it's actually a three-pronged attack. Firstly, the media starts their games, you know, saying this and saying that. Then the spectators start hooting, you know. Now, when Murali used to bowl, each delivery they shout, no ball, and goes on, right? Then the umpires play their role. Now, there have been instances of two umpires, Ross Emerson and Darren Lehmann, right? Now, they no ball Murali. Now, where Emerson was concerned, it was found that after the game, they found that he was umpiring on leave from this office because he had some mental problem. Then Darren Lehmann recently was found guilty of putting his hand into the office till, right? And he was sacked. He's a very bad gambler, it seems. Now, when you put people like that to officiate, you see, anybody who wants to take advantage can easily do so because they are morally not sound. That is the basis of spot fixing there itself. Yeah, right. So that is another thing. And I was recently told by somebody that when the Sri Lankan team goes to stay in a hotel, they put them next to a nightclub. In the next building is the nightclub. So you see, they put temptation in their way. So that is what the Australian media are very capable of.
Now, also I want to ask, when considering about the infamous acts that have taken place with regard to the Australian cricket team, one that we cannot forget is what happened at the 2007 Cricket World Cup in the finals between Sri Lanka and Australia. We saw Adam Gilchrist hammering away at our bowlers, and then after completing his century, he pointed to his glove and said, yes, look what I have in this glove. He had half a squash ball in this glove. Now, no action was taken with regard to this. But why wasn't any action taken? Are there any laws to counter such things?
Good question, Ramesh. The law is very clear. I think law number 6 or something about umpires. You see, when where cricket is concerned, there are certain implements that are specified and can be only used, like ball, bat, stumps, things like that, normal, gloves and so forth. There is no opportunity for anybody to introduce something alien to that. In other words, the squash ball, half a squash ball. Now, where Gilchrist was concerned, he had a miserable season up to the finals.
Yeah,
very bad season. Then his coach, Newsman, I think, told him to try this out, right? And he got 149 or something, included 8 sixers, and they were massive sixers. The idea in having this is to get a better leverage.
Okay.
Right? And the scientists have told that only a disadvantage he may have is that he will not have proper grip. He gets a leverage but not a grip. And he may lose the bat while batting. And it happened. Right? Then, okay. Now, the thing is, the laws are very clear. You cannot use anything else. It's like a boxer using a small something in his glove.
A stuffed glove.
A stuffed glove. Right? But the important thing here is, okay, so it was very successful. Then my simple question is, if it was so successful, Why wasn't it used after that? And the next question is, if Sangakar, Roja, Surya, one of our fellows, did a thing like that, you know what could happen.
Now, we were talking about undue advantage gained by players, by Australian players on and off the field. I also want to talk about Cameron Bancroft, the guy who was caught red-handed tampering with the ball, which led to all this. There were media photographs and videos circulating on social media of Bancroft stuffing his pockets with sugar during a series against England. Now, with Bancroft being caught like this at this stage, do you think he could have participated in this ball tampering much before as well, under an orchestrated arrangement?
Obviously. In fact, you know, people think that it was the normal TV group that shows everything on the big screen who caught Bancroft. No. It was actually, there was another news report where there are what are called TV, domestic TV crew.
Okay.
Those fellows observed that Bancroft was acting in a very peculiar manner. So they went on following him. The main TV was showing the match and the bowlers and so forth, but these fellows, the domestic TV, they were following this man, Bancroft. And obviously, after finding his game, they gave it to the main TV. And that's how it came out. And that's how this man, Lehmann, started to shout, hey, what's going on?
Over the walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Now, Cricket Australia has taken a harsh decision. That's done. But do you think that they know more about these incidents, not only what happened in South Africa, but before as well, than they are letting on?
Oh yes. In fact, what about the action about one of the War brothers, Mark and Shane Bond, when they were here in Sri Lanka? They did some jugglery and they gave some information, and when they got caught, the Cricket Australia put it under the carpet, like what's happening here. And they didn't take action for about 3 years or something, until some media man said, but why have you done anything about this?
So Cricket Australia could be hiding some things and not revealing the entire picture to the audience as well.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. Now, in terms of Cricket Australia, I want to run this through you as well. Cricket Australia, there was a lot of international pressure as well as local pressure. The Prime Minister got involved, the former players got involved, all the commentators got involved, and there was a lot of pressure on Cricket Australia to take action. What if it was Cricket Sri Lanka? What if it was Sri Lanka Cricket? If faced with a similar incident or a lesser incident, would Sri Lanka Cricket would be able to take similar decisive action this quickly?
In fact, that's a good question again. There have been instances of problems of that nature that have been pushed under the carpet in Sri Lanka. Right? So really, Cricket Australia should be paid some sort of tribute for their positive and immediate action. Right? And rising from that, it is a question of bad behavior. Overall, it's a bad behavior and cheating, right? But I want to point out that some years ago, 2004, ICC decided to give a thing called Spirit of Cricket Award.
I was just getting that. Yes.
Right. And 2004, it was awarded to New Zealand. I say New Zealand was the first to win. Then, but by the year 2009, it went out of the window. And Sri Lanka won it twice. Successive, 2007 and 2008, I think. And England also got it twice. But nothing happened after that. So the question is, you can answer it, it's a twofold question. Obviously, ICC realized that the fellows are not behaving properly. In any case, they would have found it difficult to find an award winner. That is one thing. Or pressure may have been brought. You don't, you are embarrassing us, right? It's something like that even.
After all, there are the big three nations to consider about.
That's the point.
Now, the final few minutes on the show, Mr. Mahinda. So, I want to shift our attention from Australia to Sri Lanka. Now, the 2019 World Cup is coming up. It's coming up fast. And we have a team that has, I would say, raw talent in the batting department. But in my opinion, we have a big issue in our bowling. What is your take on it?
Yes, naturally. This is a problem we have been looking away without taking positive action. We had to go back to the time that Murali and Vas were operating, right? We didn't have anybody sort of backup. Murali had nobody. Vas, in recent time there have been a string of fast bowlers, but they play in 2 matches, then they break down somewhere, and there's nobody to take over.
There's no consistency in our bowling lineup.
No. Maybe Suranga Lakmal is the only sort of person who may be able to do something, right? But overall, as you pointed out, our bowling is very poor. And when you have a poor bowling side, what happens is the other side may go 500 runs against you. And that puts the pressure on the batsman, our batsman. So, whereas if you get the other side of a 250 run, shall we say 250 run, then our batsman has the leisure, the ability to get on with the job. But if the other side scores 500 plus, you have...
More recently, in the Tri-Nation series between Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, we saw Sri Lanka against Bangladesh scoring in excess of over 200 runs, batting first, but not being able to defend it. 200 plus runs T20 is an average score on the pitches that we have, and we couldn't defend it on our own home soil. I mean, that is a bit disappointing to all the cricket fans as well.
Yeah. Now, you said that we have raw talent, but raw has not matured. This is the problem. You see, and our selectors, what do? They select a talented player for 2 games. He fails in the third game, out. And you can't do that. You see, now when Tendulkar made his debut, I think he was 17 years or something like that, and he was first to play against Pakistan, right? And the Indian captain, this chap, I can't remember, he told him, look, Sachin, you are playing in all 5 test matches. Go and play.
So they gave them the confidence to play. Now, a final minute on the show, Ms. Mahinda. So, quick question, I need a quick response. Sri Lankan coach Chandika Hathurusinghe, do you think that he will be able to succeed in this job given the current context?
The quick answer is, if he is given a free hand, he should be able to do it, but I doubt it.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mahinda Vijayasinghe, for joining us on Newsline this morning. Unfortunately, that's our time. I'm Ramesh Irugal Bandara for News First. Have a nice day.
News First, Newsline with Feroz.